All aminim sheyatzim behem mitztafim zem zelik kazayis. You can have a variety and put it together as long as you have a kazayis. V'yatzim bein ba'olim bein b'klachim avalei b'shirashim. The shaydish is the bottom part that's in the ground that gets cut off. You get a head of lettuce, so the root is cut off, but there's a centerpiece, a hard centerpiece. The Hainu Shirash Mektana HaMispaltzim Lekana Lekan that spread out in the ground. Avar Shayrish Agoda Shabay Gedelim Ha'alim Afshu Tomim Bekaka Harehu Bekal Kalach. That's like the centerpiece that goes into the ground, and there's little pieces that come off it. Mikom Bagatayv Yesa Litel Ha'alim Vaklach Hayetze Chutz Lekaka. The Roman letter grows above the kaka, and this is in the kaka. Everything that's in the ground is called a shayr. Ha'alam and yaitzimim elim kain heim lachim, if they're soft. Avu ha'klachim yaitzimim ben lachim ben yeveshim. Ach roi b'mevushalim, oy kvushim. Now, so what does it mean? Because there's some people that they take the mortar, let's say, and they put it in water. And let it lay in the water, it will take out the sharpness of the mortar. So the shaila is that if it lays in water, it becomes kavush. And if it lays in water for 24 hours, we have a rule that kavush is kamavushal. So they say that we don't paskin, that's a din by Yisurim. By Yisurim, the din is of kavush kamavushal if it lays in water for 24 hours. But over here it means if it lays in water, it's kosher, but it means if you put it in a vinegar, like in a chaymitz, that's the halacha people say.
Why can't the water be mevushal?
Huh?
Why can't the water be mevushal?
Because it loses its strength.
Just read it. It said inside Shemot. You can't be mevushal.
Hachareisis tzara shrei of zeichel etit. The chareisis is supposed to be thick, to remind you of the cement that they had to make over there. Uveshar shu tzarech etabeles hamora, yishbech etoicha yayin ay chaymitz, sheyirach zeichel adam. What we do is usually before the Suda, we take what's left over wine on the plate or what, or in the cup of it, and you pour it into the chareisis. V'gam sheiroi l'tabel boy. If it's dry, we make the whole chareisis is an apple and nuts. It says dry. Well, you can't dip in, nothing to dip into. Yesh says over here. He's saying over here, which we don't do. Yesh says a chareisis miperish shenimshel bem knesset yisrael. They add fruit in it. Kegoin te'enim shenema te'ena chonta pageho, or ve'agoizim is nuts. Shenema aginas egos, utmorim is dates. Shenema ala betomer, v'rimoinim shenema kapela chariman rakosech. V'tapuchim zeicha mashakoseh tachas hatapuach oiraticha. So, well, the only from all these things that we do is the tapuach.
So how does Piers get into it?
Huh?
How does Piers get into it? Piers also mentioned Piers. Piers mentioned Sefer HaManagim.
Yeah, okay. Pears is because it's close to the apple and stuff. Shaya Anashim Yodas Sham B'nei and Boy also they gave birth to children over there. Ushkedim, and you also use shkedim. Shkedim is almonds. Al Shem Sheshokad Hakadosh Baruch Hu Al Kates Rasa. They wish to rush to do the kates, take the Yidden out of. V'tzarech litem b'teicha tavlin. Hadayim Letevin, that's type of spices like Kegoin Kinman v'Zambel. But the Rebbe writes in the God that we don't use these things because those days they had shilas on these things like we spoke about yesterday.
Simon was Zangeville.
She'enam nidachim hadekhet v'yeshem chutim k'moy tevin. It had when they made cement. So they would put hay into the cement. Why did they put hay in? because the hay it hardens up and it holds the cement together. Otherwise, it falls apart. Zeichel leteven shoyim megavlin b'toich atit. B'Shabbos, this is an important din. B'Shabbos la yishvach as hayayin oy hachaymes b'toich hachareises ki tzorach lasses b'shinu. And the Alter Rebbe Taka writes that you should prepare it even with a little bit of wine before Shabbos. And if you didn't prepare it with a little bit of wine before Shabbos, then you have to do it with a shinu. What's the shinu? The shinu is usually on Yom Tov we take some wine and we pour it into the charaises, right? So over here the shinu is to pour first the wine into the little cup and then put back in the charaises and to mix it up with your finger, it says in Shulchan Aruch, or by shaking it. That's all part of shinu. But the best thing is to do it before Shabbos. Yasim Erev Yontiv. V'im I say it'll be Yontiv. If he does it on Yontiv, Tzarach Asaysa B'Shinu. And he says over here, he's talking about the Mei Melech. Ba'af Mei Melech, also the salt water, is a question if you're allowed to make salt water on Shabbos. So Yasim Erev Yontiv, you should make it from Erev Yontiv. V'im I say it'll be Yontiv, Tzarach Asaysa B'Shinu. She'it and Tchilas HaMayim v'achakachas HaMelech. That's the shina that he's talking about. The Alter Rebbe doesn't say this shina. The Alter Rebbe says that you should make very little. Just ma'at mizer, he says. Very little, what you need just for this night. Because if you didn't make it before Yom Tov. Incidentally, everyone asks the question, I mean, all the kids ask the question. We say, so they all ask, what do you mean? Every time we dip the hamaitzi in salt. So why? But the fact that we dip also the mother and we dip really 3 times. We dip the karpas, we dip the first mother, and we dip the second mother. The second mother, not everyone says that you have to dip it, but we do it 3 times. So the Rebbe said about that those 2 times, like I said, it's the same thing. It's the same idea. But l'chayre, why do we say mabigum pa'amachas? Ain't on mabigum pa'amachas. There is this. The Torah says mabigum means to dip in a liquid. Like when you go to the store today, they make a lot of different kind of liquids that people dip in. It could be garlic, it could be onion, it could be a tomato. But that's a liquid, so we don't dip into liquid. By Hamaitzi, we dip into liquid. Derech Agav, be Messiah with a vote on the Agoda. What is the inyan of Madbir Shtepom? If you want to do it, make. I mean, do 6 times. The same people that made the Haggadah and made the question and made the Ben Hogan for the Seder could make 6 times. Or make 1 time. If you wanted the children should see something strange, do 1 time. Why stay from? Right?
You fall asleep towards the end of the Seder.
Oh, he has a Tada Savikash, you see.
That's why we bring him here.
Okay, but there is a reason why Dafka 2 times. What's the reason why Dafka 2 times? Because Mitzrayim started with a dipping, and Mitzrayim ended with a dipping. How did Mitzrayim start with a dipping? When Yosef went to visit his brothers, state that they took Yisraelis Yosef and Vayit B'Yosef Adam. And then later, when it came Yitzias Mitzrayim, David said, "Lekachtem Agudas Esav," and dip it into the blood and put it on the mashka al shtei mezuzos. So Megu Mitzrayim started with a dipping, and Mitzrayim ended with a dipping. That's why Halag Hazeh is shtei pa'amim. This is a better teretz than his teretz.